The DNC, best known for being the most hated organization in America, 26 years running. You'll never catch up, child molesters of Cincinnati Club! The DNC quietly, 2 weeks ago, while none of us were looking, amended its bylaws, giving the narrower body power to override decisions made by its members at its quadrennial convention. The amendment removes the authority over DNC decisions from the National Convention, which includes thousands of people, and places it instead with the smaller National Committee of just under 500. Basically, they took the final say of every decision out of the hands of the convention members and put it into the hands of the ruling class of the Democratic Party. Kind of like if they no longer let all Americans pick the president and instead, like, 12 overly white men with asses in the front went into a cigar smoke-filled room and after playing a few spirited rounds of waitress sexual harassment, picked a fellow sociopath to lead the largest empire the world has ever known. Oh, they already do that. No, seriously, the DNC at one point a few short years ago admitted that they have no obligation to have a fair primary election every 4 years. Their lawyers said in court, we could have voluntarily decided that, look, we're going to go into back rooms like they used to and smoke cigars and pick the candidate that way. Bruce Spiva, lawyer for the DNC, said, according to court filings. Nothing says, don't worry, folks, we always conduct legit primary elections, like saying, we have no obligation to conduct legit primary elections. Yes, in the view of the DNC, a fair and legit primary election is like a well-behaved pet chimpanzee that doesn't rip your face off when you run out of rhubarb pie. You can hope for it, but it's not a thing. You might recall that the Democratic National Committee has a history of not being, wait for it, democratic. During both of Bernie Sanders' runs for president, they did everything they could to try and stop him. And obviously, they succeeded. They changed the rules, they lied about results, they delayed findings, they invented new ways to calculate vote tallies, like the bizarre Shadow app in Iowa, which I think was just Angry Birds with Bernie Sanders' head as one of the birds. And at one point, the DNC forced the nation to look at a wax figure named Tom Perez with the personality of a wax figure. And oh yeah, in some cases, DNC operatives simply deleted Bernie Sanders voters from the rolls. Don't take my word for it. They actually admitted it in court in 2017. The New York City Board of Elections admitted that it broke federal and state laws by kicking thousands of people off city voter rolls ahead of last spring's primary elections, WNYC reported. They improperly stripped voters across the city, including 117,000 in Brooklyn alone, of their right to vote in the April 2016 presidential primary. You gotta appreciate the boldness of that move. When a candidate is about to become the presidential nominee and you don't like it, don't bother miscounting the votes or paying for more ads starring a heavily drugged bald eagle and a lobotomized Sean Penn. That's redundant. Just go ahead and delete voters from the fucking voter rolls. It's kind of like beating someone at a video game by just kidnapping them and tying them up in a basement. Look who's winning Madden 23 now, bitch! I beat you 3 days straight, and you haven't even selected your team yet! Loser. So now, 2 weeks ago, here's the DNC continuing to change their rules to take more power away from people who aren't the ruling elite. This is, of course, part of a larger issue with American democracy, namely that we don't have any. American democracy is like a well-behaved chimpanzee. Who wrote this? And what is your issue with chimpanzees? The two parties agree on 80 to 90% of the structural issues of this country. They will never criticize capitalism or American empire or the fact that Marvel movies have 3 plots they just recycle every few years. Third parties are carefully removed from our system with hardly any discussion, like Wendy Williams, and essentially anyone who gets to the point that they are a presidential nominee on one of the big two parties has already proven themselves to be a hardcore warrior in support of disaster capitalism, in support of killing our future. Basically, unless you're a psychotic maniac, you aren't getting anywhere near the fucking presidency. And within all of that, there once existed the slightest, tiny little bit of daylight, a tiny opening that a somewhat partially, slightly socialist candidate who occasionally criticized the military-industrial complex and had said the word Palestine upwards of twice in their life could win the primary, even while receiving zero mainstream media coverage and being outspent 10-1 and facing every dirty trick the DNC had in their pockets and up their sleeves and taped behind their balls like a drug mule or a manager in an IHOP. So now, this month, we have the DNC, when essentially no one is paying attention, changing the rules to try to seal up that tiny sliver of possibility, to make sure the presidential nominee is not an actual popular candidate, but instead is a laminated neoliberal skin sack with hair plugs. Maybe that explains the new DNC motto, "We're the laminated neoliberal skin sack with hair plugs for you." That's it for now, but we are completely independently funded. Please help keep this show going on Patreon, and please share this episode with friends. Keep fighting.